I discovered my husband's betrayal on our anniversary of all days. Nothing says, happy 8 years together, quite like finding your spouse and best friend tangled in your Egyptian cotton sheets, in the home you paid for. My name is Maya Reeves, and at 34 years old, I never imagined I'd be starting over. But sometimes life doesn't ask for your permission before it tears down everything you thought was real. I still remember that Thursday afternoon with perfect clarity. I had closed a major deal at work, securing a partnership that would increase our company's revenue by at least 30% in the next fiscal year. My boss had insisted I take the rest of the day off to celebrate, so I decided to surprise Daniel by coming home early. Maybe we could start our anniversary celebration a few hours ahead of schedule. I bought a bottle of his favorite whiskey on the way home, splurging on the expensive kind he always said was too pricey, but secretly loved when I bought it for special occasions. I was buzzing with excitement, proud of my accomplishment at work and looking forward to sharing the news with him. The house was quiet when I entered, but Daniel's car was in the driveway. He must be working from home today, I thought. I noticed another car parked on the street that looked familiar. Vanessa's silver Audi. My best friend since college must have stopped by. Perfect, I could share my good news with both of them. I called out as I entered, but no one answered. Maybe they were in the backyard? But something felt off. Daniel's shoes were by the door, and next to them, a pair of high heels I recognized as Vanessa's. A half-empty wine glass sat on the coffee table, unusual for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. As I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, I heard muffled sounds. Laughter. Whispers. Then silence. What happened next plays in my memory like a bad movie scene. The bedroom door swinging open. The shocked expressions. The scramble for sheets to cover naked bodies. Vanessa's mascara-streaked face. Daniel's pathetic, "This isn't what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. 8 years of marriage and 15 years of friendship, all shattered in a single moment. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt an eerie calm wash over me as I watched them fumble for excuses. "How long?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. Daniel looked away. Vanessa couldn't meet my eyes. 6 months, she finally whispered. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Weekly lunch dates with my best friend, where they probably laughed about how oblivious I was. Anniversary dinners with my husband where he'd raised his glass to many more years together, while sleeping with her behind my back. I set the whiskey bottle on the dresser and turned to leave. "Maya, please," Daniel called after me. "I'll be back tomorrow at noon," I said, cutting him off. "You both need to be gone by then." That night I checked into a hotel downtown. I sat on the edge of the pristine king-sized bed, waiting for the breakdown that never came. Instead of tears, I felt something unexpected taking root inside me. Determination. For years, I had been the foundation of our marriage. My job as a marketing executive paid for our house, our vacations, and covered most of our expenses. Daniel's career as a freelance photographer had never quite taken off the way he hoped, but I'd always supported his dream. "Your time will come," I'd assured him countless times while transferring money to our joint account to cover his portion of the bills. Vanessa had witnessed all of this. As my closest friend, she knew how hard I worked, how much I sacrificed. She'd been there through the late nights, the stress, the times I questioned whether I was pushing too hard in my career. "You're amazing," she told me. "Daniel is lucky to have you." Apparently, she'd decided he'd be luckier with her instead. Morning came, and with it, clarity. I called my lawyer before breakfast and outlined what I wanted. A clean, quick divorce. No alimony for Daniel. The house would be sold and we'd split the proceeds, though legally I could have fought for more since I'd paid the down payment and most of the mortgage. "Are you sure about this?" my lawyer Jessica asked. "You're entitled to be angry. You could make this much harder for him." "I'm not interested in revenge," I replied. "I just want to be free." When I returned home at exactly noon, the house was empty. Daniel had left a tearful 5-page letter on the kitchen counter, begging for forgiveness, claiming temporary insanity, promising to change. Vanessa had sent 17 text messages and left 5 voicemails, each more desperate than the last. I deleted every message unheard and threw away the letter unread. That afternoon I sat in our home, my home now, and made a list. It wasn't a list of regrets or questions or even things to do for the divorce. Instead, I wrote down all the dreams I'd put on hold while supporting Daniel's ambitions. Open my own marketing agency. Travel to Japan. Learn to speak Italian. Buy a loft downtown. Write a book about women in business. For 8 years I'd made myself smaller to make room for Daniel's dreams. I'd turned down a job offer in New York because he couldn't bear to leave his local photography connections. I'd used my savings to buy him expensive camera equipment instead of investing in my own goals. I'd introduced him to countless potential clients through my business network while putting my desire to start my own agency on the back burner. No more. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Daniel fought it at first, begging for couples therapy for another chance. When he realized I wouldn't budge, he tried a different approach, demanding half of everything, including future earnings from my company stock options that had vested during our marriage. "You never would have achieved your success without my support," he argued during a mediation session. The mediator asked for examples of this support. I was always there emotionally," he stammered. "I encouraged her." My lawyer presented documentation showing I had paid 82% of our household expenses throughout the marriage. She also had records of the $45,000 I had invested in his photography business over the years. Money I wasn't even asking to be repaid. Daniel's lawyer whispered something to him, and his demands changed after that. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. The house sold quickly, and though the split was fair, I walked away with enough to put a sizable down payment on a downtown loft I had always admired. Modern, bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows and room for a home office. Meanwhile, Daniel moved into a small apartment across town. Without access to my income, he had to take on commercial photography gigs he'd previously considered beneath his artistic vision, just to make rent. Vanessa, I heard through mutual friends, had expected him to move in with her after our split. Apparently, he wasn't interested in a serious relationship with her once the thrill of the affair had faded. I'd like to say I didn't feel a flicker of satisfaction at this news, but I'd be lying. The first 6 months after the divorce were a blur of activity. I threw myself into research, created a business plan, and secured a small business loan. With my reputation in the industry and a solid client base I could bring with me, opening my own marketing agency wasn't as risky as it might have been for someone else. I rented a small office space, hired 2 hungry young graduates as my first employees, and launched Reeves Marketing Solutions with a focus on digital strategies for sustainable businesses. I worked longer hours than I ever had before, but the difference was palpable. Every minute invested was building my dream, not someone else's. On the 1-year anniversary of discovering the affair, I closed my first major client as an independent agency owner, a contract worth twice what I had projected for our entire first year. That night, I took my small team out for champagne and finally allowed myself to believe that I was going to make it. It was during this celebration that I ran into Daniel for the first time since the divorce. He was working as the event photographer, capturing corporate functions to pay the bills. The confident swagger I remembered was gone, replaced by a hangdog look that aged him beyond his 36 years. "Why, he said, looking genuinely stunned to see me. "You look amazing." I was wearing a red dress I'd bought in Italy during a business trip the month before. Another dream fulfilled. My solo adventure through Tuscany had given me time to learn basic Italian and rediscover parts of myself that had been dormant during my marriage. "Thank you," I replied politely. "How are you, Daniel?" His eyes darted around the upscale venue. "Getting by. These corporate gigs aren't my passion, but they pay the rent." I nodded, unsure what else to say. An awkward silence stretched between us. "I heard about your agency," he finally said. "It's been written up in all the local business journals. Congratulations." "Thank you," I said again. He shifted his camera to his other hand. "I always knew you could do it. Your talent was obvious." I bit back the response that sprang to my lips, that he had actively discouraged me from starting my own business, insisting it was too risky, that I should stay in my safe corporate job so we would have stable income while he pursued his artistic vision. Instead, I simply said, I should get back to my team. "Why, he called as I turned away. I was wrong. About everything. I see that now. I paused, surprised by the raw honesty in his voice. I took you for granted, he continued. I didn't appreciate what I had, who I had, until it was gone. I studied his face, searching for the manipulation that had always been there when he wanted something from me. But all I saw was regret. Sometimes we don't value things until we've lost them, I agreed. I hope you're finding your way, Daniel. As I walked back to my table, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. There was no satisfaction in seeing him struggle, just a quiet recognition that we had both ended up exactly where we needed to be. 2 years after the divorce, Reeves Marketing Solutions had grown to a team of 15 and moved to larger offices. I had published my book, Breaking Glass: Women Entrepreneurs Changing the Rules, which had become required reading in several university business programs. I had traveled to Tokyo, learned enough Italian to navigate Milan's business district, and built a network of friends who celebrated my successes rather than being threatened by them. One rainy Tuesday, my assistant told me there was a Ms. Adams here to see me. The name didn't register until Vanessa walked into my office, looking smaller somehow than I remembered. You don't have an appointment, I said, not bothering to stand. I know. She twisted her hands together. I wasn't sure you'd see me if I called ahead. I should have asked her to leave. That would have been the rational response. Instead, curiosity got the better of me. 5 minutes, I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. She sat down, perching on the edge as if ready to flee. You've done really well for yourself, she said, looking around my office with its floor-to-ceiling windows and view of the city. I didn't build all this so you could come admire it, I replied. What do you want, Vanessa? She flinched at my directness. I wanted to apologize. Properly. Face to face. I waited, saying nothing. What I did was unforgivable, she continued. I betrayed your friendship, your trust. There's no excuse. Yet I'm guessing you're about to offer one anyway, I said. She shook her head. No excuses. Just, I was jealous. Of your success, your confidence, everything you built for yourself. And instead of being inspired by it, I tried to take something from you. It was petty and destructive and cruel. The honesty surprised me. I had expected justifications, not accountability. Is that why you're here? To clear your conscience? I asked. Partly, she admitted. But also because I'm applying for a job with Summit Partners and they told me you're their marketing firm. I wanted you to hear from me first that I was in their candidate pool in case you want to tell them about our history. I leaned back in my chair. Summit Partners was one of our biggest clients. The thought of potentially having to interact with Vanessa in a professional capacity made my stomach turn. Are you asking me not to tell them? I clarified. No, she said quietly. I'm just giving you a heads up. You have every right to tell them whatever you want. I'll understand. 3 years ago, I might have called Summit immediately to ensure she didn't get the job. 2 years ago, I might have enjoyed the power to impact her career. Now I felt nothing but tired at the prospect of reopening old wounds. Your personal life is your business, I finally said. Your professional qualifications are between you and Summit. I don't mix the two. Relief washed over her face. Thank you, Maya. Don't thank me, I said. I'm not doing this for you. I just don't want you taking up any more space in my life. Not even the space of a grudge. She nodded and stood to leave. At the door she paused. You deserved better. From both of us. After she left, I stood at my office window watching rain trace patterns on the glass. Below me, the city bustled with people rushing through their lives, each carrying their own complicated stories. Somewhere out there, Daniel was probably photographing food for a restaurant menu or products for an e-commerce site. Work that paid the bills but didn't feed his soul. Vanessa was hoping for a fresh start at Summit, perhaps finally learning the lesson that taking shortcuts to success ultimately leads nowhere. Me. I had built something from the ashes of betrayal. Not because of what they did but despite it. That evening, I had dinner with a venture capitalist who was interested in helping fund an expansion of my agency to a second office in Chicago. As we discussed valuation models and growth strategies, I caught a glimpse of myself in the restaurant's mirrored wall. I looked confident, engaged, alive in a way I hadn't been during my marriage. "What made you decide to start your own agency?" my dinner companion asked. I considered telling him the dramatic story. The cheating husband, the backstabbing friend, the phoenix rising from the ashes. It would make for good dinner conversation. Instead, I simply said, "I finally decided to invest in myself the way I had been investing in everyone else." Later that night, as I stood on the balcony of my loft overlooking the city lights, I thought about the strange path that had led me here. The pain of betrayal had been excruciating, but it had also been clarifying. It had stripped away the comfortable illusions I'd built around myself and forced me to confront some hard truths. That I had allowed myself to become smaller to accommodate Daniel's fragile ego. That I had accepted Vanessa's friendship without noticing the current of envy running beneath it. That I had been afraid to reach for what I really wanted. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Saw your interview in Business Monthly. Proud of you." 3 years ago, those words would have meant everything to me. Now, they were just text on a screen from someone who had once been important in my life but no longer defined any part of it. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I have learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best version of yourself. Not because suffering is necessary for growth, but because it can strip away the fears and compromises that keep you from becoming who you were always meant to be. As I turned to go inside, I caught my reflection in the window glass. A woman standing alone but not lonely, self-contained but not isolated. A woman who had learned the hard way that betrayal has a price, but so does freedom. And in the end, freedom was worth infinitely more.